Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Vasquez. I am a barber, and I've been doing music production, and now I'm working on content creation. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything that I can. Um, for me, this is about inspiring others to embrace creativity and culture in their communities. I think that's super important to me. Um, I think that's where most people start from the bottom. You want to grow within your community and try to build from that. And once you have a nice foundation, I think that it's what it's all about. Um, yeah. So, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think community is really important. I think when you think of like the biggest artists, the biggest creatives, the people that go and do big things, the people that go to Hollywood, the people that, are touring big stages, they started at home and the people at home believed in them to be able to go and do those things. So I think it's really important that community is the foundation because then that community can be represented on a global scale. Um, if they believe or when they believe in said artist or creative. So yeah.
All right. So for me, I mean, I kind of will begin to, um, I guess, describe my journey.
Yeah. Okay.
I started I honestly started music first.
Mm-hmm.
Music was just something that I started as probably as early as 12 years old.
Yeah.
And it started with just me and my cousin were at his house. And at the time there was, those programs where you could just download music, like, what was it? LimeWire or like, and then, so anyways, we would download beats. And, one of the ones that we would always rap to was like, what's the infamous, what is it? Mob Deep. The one everybody. What is it? What's the song that? It's a pretty famous song by them. I can't really think off the top of my head, but Shook Ones. So that beat was always like for download. So then that's how it all started. We would just write, and then we would just recite what we were writing, and like we just thought it was the coolest thing. And then like the computer came with like a little microphone, and I feel like every artist started with some sort of like whatever you knew that was around the house that could record you. You were using that. But if I go a little bit even more like back to that, my dad had gave me a boombox that I used to use to just record cassette tapes. I would record over his tapes that he would buy, and I would start recording the radio and find the songs that were to me the best liking, and I would make like my own mixtape out of it. Yeah. So then when I wanted to clean my room, and I always said forget the radio show and the talking, that's how I went from there.
That's funny for me. I would like have my like this VS, and like you used to be able to record your voice memos on your VS. So I would get my DS.
You're talking about Nintendo DS?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I would like make harmonies
right
like on the DS, bro.
That is cool. That is I never, some people I've heard they've done the PS5 or no, the PlayStation 1. The PlayStation 1. Yes, and I guess there was like some games that you could like buy oh man, I forgot the name of it, but there was a music generator or something like that, and you can make beats. Yeah, I actually got to meet somebody that like still incorporates that in his music. And he like, I'm talking about one day he came into the studio, he pulled out the PlayStation, and he pulled up the chords that like are able to transfer the sound, So for me, like another thing that was super important that were just like influences in doing all this is like watching what was on TV, like I feel like you watched MTV when you got home, or like BET, what was the 106 in Park. So those are the things that I like when I would come home. That's what I mean, besides watching Arthur on PBS, you know what I'm saying? I was kind of like, I was in the mix of going through all the channels and stuff. But once I found that out, that I felt like I got a glimpse of like, oh, wow, that's cool. How do they do that? Or, you start to kind of look at what they do. And, I feel like our era, there was a lot of iconic artists as well, where like, some of them already passed. You got like Michael Jackson, Prince, you know what I'm saying? A lot of those artists that we grew up with our parents liking or that they put us onto. Some of them aren't here anymore, but those were, iconic artists. And for me, like, I think what I started to find out is like one thing that made things pivot in my career, I feel like was the way technology was shifting so fast. So I just remember, like, from seeing, like, when you did see things on TV, all you knew there was these big boards that and these big studios that you went to and things like that. Yeah, yeah, and you always thought that those type of things were like untouchable, or like you couldn't get to it. I mean, obviously it was expensive to even go to those places, and obviously for obvious reasons the gear is super expensive and still is to this day. Oh, yeah. But now with, like I said, with technology just kind of changing everything for me, I feel like that is what was pivotal in my career, was the change in the fact that, like, when I could just buy a PC, and then start connecting a microphone to it with the sound card, and have I started with Magic's Music Maker, and that's how it all began for me. So, and yeah, it was. I mean, what do you remember, like, like growing up? Yeah, that was like a influence that, in your creative journey.
For me, it started with church.
Church?
Because like that was my first outlet to like what music is supposed to be. So like the first instrument I ever heard was an organ.
So do you feel like the your family and the culture helped shape, like, create that perspective for you?
100%. Like the only thing I knew was my mom. So my mom she loved rock.
Okay.
I was listening to West Side Story.
Oh, okay.
Like, sweet.
Oh, wow.
I with my mom and like singing those songs.
Yeah.
I was like 2 or 3.
And that's like the real deal stuff. It's like, that's stuff that you can't mess up. You're going on stage and it's live. It's not like you get to redo it and cut again.
Bro, so my dad was a choir director. So
right.
He was directing 3-part harmony. So 3-part harmony comes easy to me because, like, that's what I watch.
Well, just the other day in the studio, we were recording the small piece, and then you're like, "Yeah, I'm about to lay this, and this," and it took like literally maybe a minute and a half, if that.
Bro, and it's like stuff like that. I'm starting to realize that from where the foundation came from, like why I know how to play some of the instruments, why I know how to, and it's because of church, bro. It really is like listening to an organ and watching somebody play an organ.
Right. Well, that just goes back to me, like, how community support is vital. Like, like for me, local support has helped me grow. So just in the barbershop, in the recording studio, and in my creative projects, I feel like it's helped me host events and collaborating with other local businesses where, just building that rapport with them through these businesses and being already a member of the community. I think that's something huge for me.
Good job of like community members being a part of, venues and things like that, getting in contact. Like I know you've been like in cool spaces. I've been in really cool spaces, like
right
community, like places like Ross Tots or places that are super cool and you can go in and play.
Well, I want to talk about something interesting on how we even, like, when I first met you, I didn't even meet you through music. I met you through walking the hall of the barbershop when one of the barbers that was cutting hair here at the barbershop at the shop, Zoe. I was, shout out Zoe. I know Zoe. He's doing his thing now too, and he's also been, he was a great asset to that, even knowing you. So that's how I met you. You walking down the hallway, like, hey, I know I'm getting a haircut here, and then I had and crazy part is when you explained to me who you were, I already had known about you through Wes. Yeah. So it's like we all kind of know each other, but we didn't know each other. You guys in a weird way.
Similar because you had an artist come down to work with you, and they're like, "Oh, there's this producer downstairs. He works with these like big artists." I'm like, "I'm an artist, bro." It was Juno actually that came down.
Yeah,
recorded something with you, and I was like, "Who's your dude? I need to see what's up."
Shout out Juno too. Juno's doing her thing too.
And then he was like, "Oh yeah, that's my guy Juan. Just talk to Juan, whatever." That was
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So I mean, that's what I realized that we met through the barbershop, and then it turned into the music. Like, so it went hand in hand. And that's, like I said, all through meeting through the same people.
Yeah.
Like, even the people that I already was having down here, you know them as well,
Oh, yeah.
or have some sort of knowing,
Meet somebody else, whatever, and having those people that like bridge the gap.
Yeah. So I feel, one of the biggest things, like, that I think is important is like the impact, the public art impact in our community. I think the barbershop transformations and like the music collaborations, I've used them as forms of public art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's something super important to me, which I want to take to another level by creating something along the lines of, like, I would so call it, like, I feel like art. Like, when it comes to barbering and when it comes to musicians, I feel like sometimes you need to break the ice. There's always a lot of gatekeeping. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one wants to help each other out for the good, and that goes in a lot of in business in general. So, and no one is gonna get. I don't think no one's gonna get too far trying to do that, because in order what we were just talking about was the community building. How are you going to build like that when you're being exclusive and excluding others that are possibly like you know what I mean?
It's a community issue as well. It's like we want to bridge. We want people to know more about things, and we want people to come to concerts and things like that. And sometimes we're like, oh, we're just going to call it the same people that we've called for a long time.
Right.
That's that gatekeeping thing that I think communities need help for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like that's like how you reflect the identity of it and all the values of it. I feel like the work, inclusivity and personal expression, it helps reflect everything that you're doing, and diversify it and to the community that you serve. you know I think another thing that's been huge for me is just kind of, like I was talking to you about earlier, was not just focusing on one lane of music. I've learned to kind of like reach out to other genres,
Yep.
because I feel like music is not just one sided. I mean, it's all over the place. You know what I mean? So
I think especially where we live right now, it's like there's, especially how we were talking about how artists think. It's like artists think that you have to sound like this to get.
right.
And artists think, oh, I have to be like this so that I can get people to like it. And it's okay to be different and want to try different things. Like, it's okay to have a blues jazz player while you're doing pop music.
Right.
Those things can go together. Those things can blend. It doesn't have to be. There's no answer to success.
I think one thing for me is like what's really important to me is creating a connection. And the way that I've done that is how people have been impacted positively by my work, and how I've helped artists refine their sound and creating a safe space for self-expression.
Yeah.
I think that's basically what we were literally talking right before we even got on here. And I think that's something that's really important to me is, artists like to be artists, and artists want to create,
Sometimes, like, being an artist and performing is also therapy. Like, we love doing it, and it is a profession, but it's also a way to get through things. Like, I know if I'm creating a song or sitting down in my house and creating a song, and I'm whatever, sometimes I'm on the clock for that. Sometimes I can submit something to an artist, whatever, but it's also helping me get through my day.
Right.
So, like, with creatives in general, like, I'm sure there's someone who paints, out there, and I'm sure there's someone who, does something different, that they use whatever they like as an escape.
Yeah, and you realize all those things that you said, they go in line with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just whatever it is your niche is on it. I feel like no matter what the end result is, to come out with creative stuff that inspires people and motivates people, or makes, sometimes with music, for me, I feel like art can make you feel like whether you're looking at art or you're listening art, which is music, I feel like it helps you either feel good, or you might have felt, upset about something, and now you feel good. If that.
And the burden for me, for artists in general, is we do things to make the other person feel good, or to make whoever the consumer is, any fan or just a lover of art. We are doing it so that we can get a reaction, so that people can be like, "Oh, I like this thing," and so that they can get the same feeling that we have when we create.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think for us, I feel like the spaces that we are in as creatives, the goal is to, I, for example, want to foster the creativity and all the community connections and have that to be resourceful, and be able to, like, I think that's the importance too, like with CEI, is being a resource to those creatives that need it, that didn't know that it was around, and the more people like yourself and I can spread it to our community, the more they're going to be well aware of it, and they're just going to notice that it's something that you want to be a part of.
I think it's the cool thing about it is we are the representation of CEI is artists, people that have done it to us.
Right.
So being able to share resources, we wish we had that when we came up. We're still get better, we're still growing, but when we were growing up and things like that, and in the business and going through the things that we went through, giving those resources so that you don't have to. Because some of that stuff sucks. Especially on the business side, especially with writing a contract,
Right.
money.
The challenges, the
So many challenges.
I feel like there's challenges, and then there's also joys of running, like, for me, creative spaces. I feel like I get, you know, some of the things that you can run into, juggling multiple businesses. You're in a sense, that's what you're doing. You're not just you might be performing at night, but during the day you're running a program. You know what I mean? And in the midst of all that, you're building a clientele, and but it's making sure that there's also clarity, and everywhere that you're going, that you're keeping the space that you're around, fresh and welcoming. I think that's where, when people see that they can actually go there, and it's like a safe zone to create, and that's I would say that's what we're doing with some of the programs that we've been involved in, is we're creating those safe zones for the upcoming generation, so that they realize, like, hey, this is out here. It might not be presented to you as much in school, but it definitely can be um, put in a different location, and now we're calling for it so that you guys can come here and try it out.
I would even say also, especially for artists, it's like, a safe space to be like, hey, there's a problem that I'm having.
Right.
Like, I don't like this thing, or I don't
Right.
like this producer, or I don't know what to do about this and this person, or like just
How to handle
how
situations.
to handle situations,
Yep.
work situations, how to move forward.
How to feel confident and seen. I think those are very important things that go together. I feel like with anything, once you do feel, it's like being a singer, right? Once you feel confident in what you're doing, now you're not so afraid of stepping on stage and be seen. So for me, another thing is in engaging, like, with local events, to discover similar spaces. So being in contact with some of the musicians that I do run into, I'm starting to discover these places.
Yeah.
There's definitely hidden gems here, I believe, in the Quad City area. And it's cool for me being a producer. I guess I have more of the door open for me, because most studios, they might only have one guy that's there. So, like, when someone like myself comes around, it's a lot easier for me to get an open door than, like, an artist craving for attention, trying to come in and just like, record me. Yeah, but I have no money, but it's a business. It's like, okay.
It also weeds out professionalism from being a novice. There's nothing wrong with being a novice. There's nothing wrong with being a rookie.
Right.
I mean, like you still have those, you still have space to learn things like that, but it's also differentiating professionals, and this is how we get it done. And then while you're learning what to do, what not to do in that space,
But I think one of the biggest things overall, going to all these places, I think what's important is that we encourage the collaboration, so that we can grow, and the spaces can go further. Like I feel like that's huge when it comes to finding these hidden gems. Like for me, when I start going to all these studios, I don't gatekeep about anything. If I find a musician or anything, I'm always like, hey, go to him. He does 808s better than I do. I'll tell you that right now. Go to him. If you need that's how I am. I'm not trying to force people to, like, it's my way and I only do it this way. It's like, no, if I can't solve a problem myself, I'll find your solution elsewhere. And that not only goes in the studio for me, it happens for me in the barbershop. Being that I work with 12 other barbers, I'm not afraid to be like, hey, I can't get you in, but so and so can. I'd rather be a service than a disservice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and I'll even say like that's how I moved as like, an artist who's looking for a band.
Right.
I was always like, you know what, if I find a hidden gem, if I find this drummer is good, and got a good foundation and he's willing to learn, come with me.
Right.
Let's learn this. Let's learn so I can put you on, so I can put you in the place that I need, and then we can just make it a pipeline. Everybody starts to thrive.
But
that's how I got the bands that I have now. It's just really from finding those guys and being able to be like, all right, let's do it.
it's like I feel like one of the things about art in general, the how it has the inclusivity in the art world is huge. I think because you want to bring people to these places so they can feel like they can be whoever they want to be, but it doesn't matter like their background or identity. I think it's like if you want to draw and that's how you let your emotions out, great. If you want to practice to the guitar and you don't know how to play it, you're still, I feel like you let some energy. It's no different than someone sometimes saying, hey, you might, if you're feeling a certain way, go to the gym and hit the weights. Or like, I feel like, it's another form of expression, to release stress.
It's an outlet for creatives. And you don't have to be like, there's professionalism, but there's also spaces to be creative. You don't have to be, you know what I mean, in a box of like, oh, I have to get. No,
make it accessible. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's about.
All juice,
and that's like for me, I want to empower that accessibility, through educational programs that I want to offer, to being that I grew up going to the Boys and Girls Club, so I learned a lot of things at the Boys and Girls Club that if I didn't go, I would have never got my hands on whatever it is that I did do there at times. And I feel like for me, that is what I want to bring. I want to meet a kid that was like me and now be like, hey, I remember when I wanted to know about music, but I didn't have the access to it. I will give you the access to it and just come to the program. I'll be there. You're there. I'll be there, and
the same way. Like if there's a kid that wants to learn trombone, I'm like, dude, all right, go to the program next week. I got a trombone for you, bro. Like, let's do this. I don't want anything to hold you back from wanting to be able to do something that you want to do, especially if you're passionate about it.
I think one of the biggest things for me is watching one of the groups that I've been working with, that I've been I would say from the beginning when they started, a lot of the things that I noticed were they were really hungry. So that to me it made me think of myself back then when I wanted to start music. So when I see kids that have that hunger, or just anyone that comes into the studio or at the barber college, for example, and I'm seeing that drive, I would say I'm even more accessible to you because you're basically calling me over to you. It's like a signal, like, hey, I'm ready to learn and I'm ready to put in the work, and that to me, I feel like it sparks motivation and inspiration, and I think that's super important when it comes to art, because if you can't get inspired, it's hard to let that out. You have to.
Absolutely, it's hard to get inspiration if you're just sitting. It's hard to get inspiration in a like you.
Right.
But I'm sitting in a room like this, and I see symphonies, and I see different pictures. I see a picture of a guitar, and I'm like, what, that makes me want to go do something. It makes you want to try to, maybe I'll put some on the piano. Maybe there has to be something. You can't get You can't get motivation from nothing.
Right.
Motivation has to come from something.
Right. And sometimes motivation I feel like can come from your like downfalls too.
Yeah.
You might be you might be you might be in a hole and like one that little bit of sunlight that hits you is like spark that inspiration to get up
Yeah.
and get moving, because I feel like sometimes like back to music and how frequencies can affect you in that way. There's certain notes that if I start playing this, I bet you someone's gonna move this way, or you can read the room. And like I was in one of the programs yesterday for at the Boys and Girls Club for Common Chord. We were doing a how music makes you feel. So I would play all these different like chords, and I feel this makes me feel sad. This makes me feel scared, or I want to run, or I'm like, what does it make? I'm like, and then I described to them how how they attached music to the movies. So when you're watching a scene, I told them, I was like, I bet you if they put this funny song on this sad scene, you wouldn't even feel sad. You're just looking at it and you're like, what? Your brain's confused, So it's crazy how that stuff works. So I mean, we talked about being local artists and public art. The hidden creative spaces. One thing that I want to go back to real quick is that there's a lot of studios around here. People don't really realize. You got Skylark, you got that in Rock Island, you got East Side and East Point. So you got I feel like we got New Legacy. That's another. So we got three just in those three cities, and then you got others in Davenport. You know what I mean? You there and the venues too. I mean, I'm for sure that you probably can name a good 5 to 10 venues that people don't realize are hidden gems in this area.
Damn, like there's one venue. It's the Rust Belt. People don't really know about the Rust Belt until you go.
Right.
But like I saw one of my favorite bands. I saw Lettuce at the Rust Belt, and it was amazing. And
right.
It was a free show, Brent.
That's great. Wow. Yeah. That's
people are like, oh, there's nothing to do. I'm like, stop that. It's everywhere. Like we have the Rust Belt. We have the Capitol Theater.
Right.
Adler Theater. We have Common Chord. We have, you know what I'm saying? Like we have the Tax Slayer Center. You have so many different places, and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing to go to." Yeah, there is though. And I'll see like posts, like Facebook posts of like a girl, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I just want a wine night and some jazz."
Right.
Like, go to the Grape Life. They have a show every night with wine and a show and jazz. Exactly what you're thinking. You can get at a big city. You can literally get.
Right. So I think one of the things that is something that I want to encourage people that watch this and are listening to this to support the small businesses and go ahead and visit your local barbershops, studios, the galleries, and to see the creativity within the area. I think that's how we all can win, by helping each other out in that sense.
Yeah, and that's even like I mentioned, like something like Grape Life. Grape Life is a great wine,
right?
Wine lounge in Davenport. They know their customers. They know you by name.
Right.
They're like, oh, hey CJ, thanks for coming in. You want the usual like things like
it makes you feel at home, It makes.
Yeah, but you don't get that with Starbucks. But you'll get that with a local coffee company.
Right. So I think I also I want to encourage the listeners to check us out on our platforms when we are set up and going. I think CEI, Create Empower Initiative. I think it's going to be huge, and it's something for people to really look after and really take in whatever they can from it, because we're going to just drop as many things, as much knowledge as possible as we can, and just share our thoughts, and hopefully they can get some inspiration from this and the creative journeys. And like I said, to build a sense in the community is what I'm saying. So I think there's, if anything, I just want to say, like, for all the people who are collaborating, they should reach out and go to, like I said, some courses that we do, how could I say, immerse themselves into it, because like we're creating these special places for people to come do this.
If you're creative and you're wanting to learn more about creating something, you want to learn the business of something, you want to learn what it takes to take it to the next level, CEI.org is the place to be.
Yeah, I believe so. So I mean, I really encourage some of these, so all the listeners, to provide us some feedback. Send us suggest some topics for us to talk about, and we can talk about that, and maybe drop some comments on some guests we should have on here, who you guys would like to have us on these episodes and help grow the community. I think that's, like I said, that's the biggest and most important thing. And eventually we can come back and we can offer more ways on how you guys can connect with us and create more opportunities so that we can collaborate. So I think that's pretty much how this podcast is going to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, y'all. Appreciate it.